Back on Kababayan Today, ako po si Tongi. We are with our panel of Phil-Ams entrenched in the Hollywood game. Back to the issues at hand, it's worth mentioning our fellow Filipinos in the industry that have Oscars, but why so few? Do we give up on, do we help each other up? Nagtutulungan ba tayo? What is the big hurdle? Let's discuss that. Yong, you are there at the Oscars, you cover it all the time. How many Filipinos do you see walking through the red carpet?
Well, the first one that I covered with a client of Winston's actually was Pia Clemente back in, I forgot what year was that, when she was nominated for producing a short film. And then just a few years ago with Robert Lopez actually winning the Oscars for Best Song for Frozen, Let It Go. It's crazy the day when you're right there and seeing them really very excited. And Robert has been amazing. In his work, his work really speaks for itself. So it's really no surprise that he won, Filipino or not.
Right. Well, what can you say, Francis, about, you know, do we help each other out? Why aren't we there at the Oscars?
You know, this year we have the co-director of Inside Out, Ronnie Del Carmen's also nominated. To our fellow Kababayans, just let's support our fellow Kababayans out there too, and really champion them as well, and be proud of them, and share that they've achieved something that few of us have done so far, and keep pushing that wave, keep pushing that forward. I think that's the best we can do as a community.
Okay, well, we always hear in the news, right? Oh, this is the Oscar, you know, this is what we're giving to the Oscars from the Philippines, right? The films coming out of there, there are always some Oscar, there are always Oscar hopefuls. Why don't they make it into the foreign category? David, why do you think?
I think Winston can probably talk about this probably more extensively than I can, but I think it has a lot to do with the fact that they're just not really supported beyond the community. I think the community can come out to support them, but if larger audiences who include Academy voting members don't come to see them and don't even know that the films are out there, then there's no way they can even sort of get onto the short list, let alone get an actual nomination. And that's the frustration, is that so many great Filipino films are not having the opportunity to cross over to wider audiences beyond, you know, our Filipino community.
Right. Well, I mean, the real issue here is money, right?
Of course.
If you have a marketing budget that is smaller than your budget, and your budget's already small, how are you going to get seen out there? Winston?
I think the approach for this, G, has to be an approach for a Filipino Oscar nominee in foreign language should be no different than a Filipino national approach for Miss Universe. It has to come from the entire diaspora. I know that by experience, when other countries have a film that's up for a foreign nomination, I mean, their government will host parties.
Well, good luck with that, because in the Philippines, they ain't going to spend anything on you.
Which, that's part of the change that we need to see. Absolutely. If we want to see our films, the profile has to increase. And with the increased profile, increases our chances as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not because our films are not good, or our filmmakers are not, you know, the same level as, because I remember when I interviewed Alfonso Cuarón, the first time that he asked me was like, how's Brillante Mendoza? I'm such a huge fan of his work. So you know that the works of our Kababayans are appreciated by a lot of international people. It's just that, like Winston said, we don't mount the kind of campaign that other countries do.
Well, you know, speaking of Brillante Mendoza, I've been in film circles where they call his films poverty porn. Is this what? This is not just what we want to be known about, right? We are so much more than just that. But these are the films, and kudos to Brillante. I mean, he's out there. He's getting noticed in Europe and everywhere. But there's always this question of kailan kaya tayo? When will we have our turn?
I think just even you saying about just typical genre that people think what we're coming out of, and we're talking about diversity, our Filipino culture is very diverse too, and we have to present really diverse stories coming out of different regions, different minority groups, different stories, and so I think once we kind of discover that within ourselves, you know, diversity is very scalable in a sense that within Philippine cinema, there's more other stories to tell, and they actually get better exposure or better traction as well.
Okay, I want to ask David. David, you are there in the academic programs. You have these young generation of students. How many come through that are Filipino?
I mean, there's a healthy percentage in the classes, and I think what's really fantastic is that so many of them, and I would say almost all of them, are still very connected to their culture and to honoring, you know, their family stories, their personal stories, and knowing how important it is to actually tell those stories to larger, broader audiences. And so they're getting really well trained at the schools where I teach, and they're sort of soaking in all these fantastic history of great cinema and then translating it to Filipino-themed stories. And that's what's really, as Francis was saying, is going to help those films, our films, really cross over to the broadest possible audience. And that's always the goal, share our stories with everyone.
Exactly. Okay, when we return, we discuss what we can do to change the face of the Academy Awards, literally, and throw some color into the equation. We'll be right back.